Hi there everyone, it's Paradigm, and just a heads up, this is going to be a pretty lengthy video, so for your own sake I just suggest that you grab a snack or a drink or something to enjoy while I rant to you about the ending of Xenoblade's Chronicles. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually a Smash 4 Shulk main, and if you check out my channel you'll see that Eriko and I, we make a lot of videos about Shulk, his advanced techniques, and other stuff relating to him in Smash. But this video is going to be about Shulk in Xenoblade, and I actually didn't know anything about Xenoblade or Shulk before he was included in Smash. I had no idea who the character or the game was. And I only started playing as the character because he was fun. I tried him out haphazardly and I'm like, hey, this is a cool character, this is really fun. And I didn't really consider playing Xenoblade, just because I looked at the character in Smash. I looked at, like, oh, he's got a cool sword, he just looked like some typical RPG protagonist. And I don't mean this as, like, any sort of offense to RPGs, but they just weren't really the games that I would seek out to play. The last RPG I really played was, The Legend of the Dragoon was something on the PlayStation 1 my brother and I used to play together. And we eventually beat that just like a couple years ago, after like getting stuck on disc 2 or something back in the late 90s. But anyway, it wasn't until one of those in-game facts that said that Shulk was a scientist that I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. You don't normally, like, most RPG protagonists are something like, I don't know, some farm boy who just, like, you know, wants to be strong, or like the king's knight or whatever. Like, a scientist, that's different. And I was like, I like that. That's cool. I'm into like engineering and science myself, and I took an interest. And saw stellar reviews. I knew that this game was going to be good the moment like I just even looked anything into it. Everybody ranted about it and loved it. And so I ended up having to buy a new Nintendo 3DS. I got myself a little Monado decal here to play it. This was before the Virtual Console came out, so I just ended up spending all this money to play Xenoblade, but it's nice, you know, have Xenoblade on your own. The new 3DS is nice, I love it, just wish I didn't have to spend all that money just to play Xenoblade. But I ended up playing it, and it took me, I think, about a little over a year to beat it. I was in, like, I think 3rd year of university, working full-time when I wasn't in university, so it was really only a couple hours a day when I could get the chance to play it. But I eventually did end up beating it, I think a little over 6 months ago. I've been writing this rant for a while. And just as a heads up, I'm gonna discuss, like, endgame spoilers, obviously, but if you haven't beaten the game, even if you, like, have seen spoilers and everything, but if you want to play this game eventually, but you haven't yet, I really want you to go play it first. Like, go experience the game for yourself firsthand, get your own opinion of it and such, because I don't really want it to be my fault if the first time you play it you're like, oh, that's right, this is gonna be so disappointing or whatever, because Paradigm ranted about it, because, like, so many people played it and they had a great first impression. I don't want to be the reason anybody gets, like, a bad opinion. I don't want to prime you for that sort of thing. Not to say that my arguments is gonna, like, persuade you that it's bad, but just go play it first if you haven't yet. Like, this video will be up, you can do it. Because I just want to discuss what my experience with the game was and why it was, in many ways, such an amazing game, and in just a couple of ways really let me down. So, let's just start with the good, because Xenoblade in so many ways just really exceeded my expectations. Like, so many tropes it would shatter. Like, it set you up at the very beginning of the game to be this sort of typical RPG, you know, Shulk setting out on a quest for revenge, like, oh, his love interest, whoever, dies, oh, that's bad, we gotta fight the evil Mechon, and, like, they're the evil characters or whatever. And, you know, every critic will tell you that it's great because the plot is so much more complex than it starts off to be. It sets up tropes, and then it immediately breaks it. Like, even Shulk himself is, like, an aversion of the typical, you know, angry, protagonist, because even though he has those moments of like, oh, I'm gonna kill you and whatever, it turns out in the end that, you know, it's Zanza influencing his mind, and those angers aren't really his character. He's very much a calm, reserved person and such. Like, those sort of little trope versions. It's amazing, absolutely phenomenal. And, like, you know, there's all these allusions throughout the game to there's something being bigger coming. So these, like, those little dreams that Shulk would have, like, involving Alvis or Zanza and, like, him being young, and there's all of this mystery going around that's setting up for something huge, and of course it does culminate into something huge. But it's amazing from start right up to this big, I'm looking at notes over here, so don't mind me because I organized all my thoughts, to what is, like, pretty much the climax of Xenoblade. And it, like, the scope of the game just gets huge. The complexities start very, very minimal. Like, you're like, oh, got my little party, and we're trying to defeat the Mechon. But, like, your enemies, they differ. Like, soon you learn that, oh, the Mechon are no bad, but we also have to fight, like, these Hyentia. Why are the Hyentia fighting it? Like, it just gets more and more complicated. And, like, the game itself, obviously, is phenomenal. Like, the voice acting is great, the environments are stunning, like, so immersive, so in-depth. You just enjoy exploring the game, which is pretty cool, considering, like, the console itself. Like, the graphics aren't, like, what we expect for a next-gen console right now. Like, the graphics aren't, they're realistic, but they're still, like, fun to explore, just in the art style that you can see. And even, like, the sequences that aren't voice acted, like, you know, all the NPC dialogue, and side quests, even if it isn't voice acted, it feels immersive because you're getting, like, all these little tidbits of information about, like, a greater world, and there's so much good, and I really do love Xenoblade. I want to make that clear. And it all just comes together absolutely phenomenally in what, like, has to be my favorite video game climax since Metal Gear Solid 2, and for those of you who don't know, that's my all-time favorite game. As of making this video, maybe it'll change in a few years. But, like, the build-up is unparalleled. You have, like, these things just going awfully in Agnirtha, like Shulk losing control of the Monado. Like, there's supposed to be the Apocrypha generator, but right before you go to defeat Egil, you have to beat it, but things are still going wrong. It's like, why is nothing making sense? Nothing is as simple as you want. Egil isn't really a bad guy, and I absolutely love Egil. Like, Egil might be, like, my third favorite character in the game or something. I know that's, like, not saying much, but, like, this villain is just so wonderfully portrayed and so endearing to me. I really enjoy his character. And I think that if there was to be, like, a Xenoblade prequel, I think it would be cool to just take a look at what Egil is like before he kind of got this destroy Bionis mentality into him. Because, like, there's a lot of parallels between Egil and Shulk and what you can see. Anyway, I won't get into that right now. But you get this amazing battle with Egil. The battle with Egil might be my favorite battle in the game because just the span of it all is phenomenal. Like, he's, like, in the center of this room, and it's like you're actually fighting basically a miniature, even though he's huge, version of the Mechonis, because you're, like, orbiting around him, like he'd be orbiting, like, around a planet or something. And, like, he has, like, a more complicated battle. Like, I'm not gonna say, like, it's the hardest battle or anything, because the difficulty of the battles is subjective to who you use, how under or over leveled you are. But, like, it's a complicated battle, and it's, like, dramatic, because you have to defeat those stupid little things in order to lower his defenses or whatever they were. And then there's that attack that is, like, doing infinite damage, like, literally does infinite damage, just gonna destroy the Bionis. Like, it's dramatic. It's humongously dramatic, and I love that battle. And then after defeating Egil, you get, like, the best cutscene in the game. Like, the composition of it is amazing. I'm probably going to edit in some footage from different parts of the game, which is all going to be from Helsonium, if I'm saying his name right. So shoutouts to him for having all the cutscenes available so I don't have to record Xenoblade footage somehow. And you get the biggest plot twist in the game, and maybe it's not wholly original, but in terms of video games, you don't normally get plot twists of this degree. And it's amazing. You get just so much emotion into it, so much complication. Zanza himself looks, like, fantastic. Like, his design, I love his design. The voice acting is all phenomenal. It just feels, it is the pinnacle. It's the true climax of the game, and it delivers so phenomenally. And I don't have any complaints about to the game up until then. Like, it would be nitpicky complaints, if anything. And it's some of the highest pointing in gaming I've had, period. And I just want to say that I love Xenoblade just for that experience alone makes it so worthwhile to experience. But then there comes to the point of the game where there's just this huge, not tonal shift, but the shift in the gaming quality. So everything up until the point where Dixon feels fear, I would say, is some of the best gaming I've ever experienced. Like, the scene where Shulk comes back to life after being dead and kills Atelethia, like, that's uber badass. Like, the exchange between him and Dixon, it's, like, phenomenal. I can tell that the writing was really thought-provoking. People put their time into that. The delivery was amazing. Well, the delivery of the game throughout is amazing. The voice actors did a great job. The environments are engaging, and everything up until that point, up until you reach Colony 6, Shulk comes back to life, and I guess the Tyrea side quest, which was pretty fun, is phenomenal. But everything after that point, it just gets so... it feels almost like a different game. The pacing, the environments, it's I know it's perhaps it was intentional. Like, this is a valid point that, you know, everything was supposed to have changed. Like, you know, Zanza's destroying the world feels more disjointed because, like, things are getting destroyed or whatever. But it's not a good shift. This is what I have to say. The point of this is that this ending portion of the game was such a letdown after how amazing the rest of the game was. I'm gonna get onto my next page. Like, it's... The climax, of course, of the game is supposed to be the death, so up until that cutscene with Egil, Zanza coming to life. Of course, that's going to be the most dramatic thing, and everything from about there is, you know, the final resolution, like in a typical plot arc. But it feels like, let's just take a look at the next environment that you go into after Colony 6 is the Bionis interior. And this area, like, it wasn't really a surprise to me that we would go there. Like, you knew early on that, like, hey, that you can't fill the Collectopedia, like, this is weird, this is such a random area. You had to pretty much know in your head, we're gonna go back here, and you look at one look in the OST on YouTube, and you know that the Bionis comes to life, because there's Bionis interior, the two versions of it. And this was a region that had so much promise, because it's like, the Bionis is coming to life. You come inside and it should be, like, alive and dangerous and everything. And, like, you know, it is dangerous. But really the only thing they executed well with this area is, like, the parallel of, like, the Telethia kind of being Zanza's white blood cells, if you want to think of that. Like, you know, defending the interior. Because that's literally all you do in this area is fight Telethia. It is so bland and boring and dull. It is arguably the worst area in the game. And it's not like, you know, all areas have to be engaging or vibrant. Like, Ignirtha, you can argue, is similar to this in that all there isn't any NPCs per se. But it's supposed to be that way. It's a desolate, like, ruin. It fits the atmosphere well, and you at least have the Ignirtha side quests, which give you, like, a purpose to defeating all of the Mechon enemies there, and you get a little reward for doing it. That's good. I'm happy with Ignirtha. The music's great. It's, like, one desolate environment is enough. But you get to the Bionis interior, and there was so much wasted potential. You had, like, an entire, like, world of biology and human biology related exploration that you could do. Like, we learned about how the Mechonis is, like, sucking the ether out of the Bionis, and they seem to have, like, this symbiotic relationship, right? And, like, there's all this lore building of, like, the Mechonis and how its interaction with the Bionis, but we learn nothing about the Bionis at all while we're in its interior. Like, nothing. We know that there's, like, some stomach goo that you'll die in if you go into it, but, like, it's bland, it's dull, there's no NPCs. I think there's still that silly little Nopon outside. I don't even know if he got out of there when there's, but, like, there's no, like, you know, researcher Nopon, like, oh, I want to study the Bionis. Like, that would be good, that would be good. Like, there's not even, like, some stupid, let's go fuck up Zanza's liver plot, because that would be good. Like, something optional, something to give you a reason to be there and to fight those Telethia, other than just, like, items and, like, a level grinding, because, like, you have to get those stupid black liver beans there. Like, that's the only reason to be there, is to get levels or, like, grind for, what are those called? Like, those advanced book drops. And it's lifeless. I know that, another Shulk main, Dragon Brain, got to this point in the game, and he was literally so bored, he almost didn't beat the game. Like, he was just like, this is bland. Like, you had such a great build-up, and you immediately just reach this stark, awful, like, it's bad. I don't want, like, maybe you can defend it in some way, but it feels like just a wasted potential in a boring section of the game. And the point of this is to get to the Bionis Heart, which in itself is another wasted potential. When I saw that we were going to the heart, I was expecting, like, something a little bit deeper. Like, oh, we're literally seeing into the heart of the Bionis. Maybe we'll learn something, like, cool about how the Bionis works. Maybe we'll be able to see into the mind of Zanza and whatever. It's just fucking Lorthia there. Like, is that what's inside it? It doesn't really make sense. Why is she even there? And you have this stupid, awful battle, which even makes it worse because everybody associates the Bionis interior with the Lorthia battle. And that in itself, I guess, is worth mentioning, that it feels like the game is just, like, giving that frustration is, like, an artificial, like, I don't know if it was planned to be as difficult as it was. Again, difficulty could be subjective, but pretty much everybody didn't like that battle. But it's like, you spend a lot of time in that area, not because you want to, but because you're just beating all of these difficult enemies, and it leaves an even fouler taste in your mouth. And I gotta say that, like, the cutscene between Callian and Melia, Cal, get his name right, it was great. It was heart-wrenching. Like, poor Callian and Boat Lorthia, you know, having to make, like, I don't know, like, that point, we all know what it was. But it felt like such, like, a wasted potential for that interaction to just randomly happen in the Bionis Heart, which wasn't really, like, I don't know if it was, maybe I missed this part, but why was there a transporter? Like, okay, I'll get to the transporters in a bit, but why was Lorthia there? Did they just say, stand guard in the heart? Well, maybe they'll come there. Like, I don't know why. Because for me, it would have made a lot more sense for Lorthia to be standing guard. Like, we used to see Prison Island in Erisi, and Alchemoth is right near there. So for me, it would make more sense for there to be a transporter in Alchemoth, in, like, maybe in the Emperor's Chamber or something, and it would have given us a reason to go to Alchemoth, because that's one of the biggest things in this game, is that if you're just plowing through, doing the main story, and not stopping to do all the side quests, you could miss going to see the desolation that is Alchemoth after the Telethia is transformed, because that is an incredible sight to see. And the fact that even though you go there, I don't even think that there's any unique dialogue from Melia seeing her home city destroyed. Like, you have some side quests there, but, like, you could have had that emotional cutscene of Melia seeing the destruction of her race by, like, going to Alchemoth, like, by forcing you to go there. Instead, we have this interaction just in the Bionis Heart randomly, and there's, like, nobody there. Melia isn't, like, having any memories of anything. Maybe I'm just thinking this could have been more dramatic, and maybe this is a nitpick, but I'm really sad that we didn't go to Alchemoth, and players could have missed going to Alchemoth because it wasn't forced onto them from the story. But just it seems like such a random place to have that cutscene. Let's go to the next page. But it's a letdown. The area was a letdown. There was nothing good about it. Like, I'm sick of fighting Telethia. The environment isn't inspiring. It's bland, and not in a good way, not in a way that I think is justifiable. And then there's the segue. And this is going to be a big thing that I talk about in here. Is the segue to Prison Island is just Dixon, like, shows up or something, and he's like, here's a transporter, come get me! And he, like, runs away and just leaves you a transporter in the Bionis Heart to get to the Prison Island. And it's like, it feels just so shoehorned in, like you needed this transition. And it doesn't make sense. Like, why would Dixon help you to, like, fight unless he could have just fought you there, which I know would make not sense, like, in terms of, like, a game design to do one boss fight after another. You need to have some exploration. But it doesn't even give, like, a reason for retreating. It's like, at least, like, you know, every other time a boss retreated, it's like, oh, we have to go back to base or whatever. Like, Dixon is just, like, waiting for you. He's literally waiting for you, but he, like, I guess has to go get that dragon ready or whatever. And this is probably the point in the game in which they abuse the use of teleporters the most. And it's pretty obvious to me, because you get to the Bionis interior, and you teleport to Prison Island. Like, okay. And then you get to Prison Island, you fight a dragon, and then you teleport to outer space. And then you get to outer space, and you teleport to Zanza's Rainbow Hall of Death. And it's like, nowhere else in the game do you see those sort of, like, abrupt segues. Like, you do, like, skip to another area, you don't see the transition, but it's always implied that, you know, you walk there, you fall there, like, there's something a bit more natural, and it was underwhelming because it's kind of just, like, the game was literally, it felt a lot more like a game than an experience, and how much they used these transports. And again, you could defend, like, oh, you need to have the transport because the world is broken, like, you can't get to all the areas you used to. Yeah, maybe, but in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if I discovered that at this point in the game, the developers were running out of time, and they had to kind of cut content and kind of glue things together. Like, this is all speculation, I've never read anywhere about something like this, but there's a notable lack of NPCs in these last two areas. Like I said, there could have been some pretty cool side quests going on in the Bionis interior, especially since, like, it wasn't like everybody was dead. People need help. People will be taking advantage of that. You can be helping them. But none of them exist in the Bionis interior or in Prison Island. In Prison Island, it makes a little bit more sense because, like, who would be there? But both of these are environments that were already in the game. Like, they probably decided pretty early in development that the Bionis interior would have, like, a dead and an alive version. But the fact that Prison Island, like, you would pretty much use the same assets. They're both different regions, I'll admit, but, and Prison Island got a badass new song. But, they both are a lot less fun to explore than previous areas in the game. And maybe it's supposed to be that way. Again, you could argue it because, you know, it would be pretty jarring for, like, you know, we gotta defeat Zanza to, like, ooh, let's explore, and maybe it's supposed to be streamlined, but it's definitely a letdown from the rest of the game that never previously wanted to deter you from exploring and, like, expanding upon the lore, because that was another thing, is that NPCs and side quests and stuff like this expand upon the lore of the game. And that in itself is half of the fun of Xenoblade, and there was none of that in this section. So, ignoring most of Prison Island, let's just skip on there, because, you know, I think it's pretty standard, like, you know, face some baddies before going up to the final baddie. I've got all my criticisms aside. You go and fight Dixon, and the Dixon boss fight makes a lot more sense than the random Lore Theo one in the Bionis interior. But I do have my criticisms of this too, just because of that random cutscene you get in the middle of the fight. To me, it seemed off-tone, because I was expecting a lot more emotion from this fight. That's not to say, like, there obviously wasn't emotion when Dixon finally died, but, like, Shulk in the middle of the battle, he seems to have this moment of, like, doubting if he's strong enough or something, and he needs his friends to give him a pep talk and such, which is something we gotta talk about also when we get to Zanza, but let's get there. And so this is, like, his struggle, is him deciding, like, or thinking about, like, he's too weak and he can't beat Dixon. When to me, it should have been not a physical, like, struggle he was going through, but an emotional one, because Dixon was the guy who he pretty much viewed as a father his whole life. He didn't have parents, his parents died. And not only is he learning that he betrayed him, but the fact that his parents are dead is largely in part due to him, that he pretty much replaced his parental figures, but was a facade. He was pretty much just priming him to be Zanza's vessel. Like, there could have been so much more emotion in this, and, like, either Shulk being, like, angry at Dixon, or being sad, or forgiving him, or something like that would have made more sense to me, like, in the middle of it, to show some sort of, like, emotional strain, rather than, you know, friends giving pep talk. And that, oh, I hate that one scene where, Shulk and Fiora just do, like, this Baywatch slow motion walk, while, like, Fiora's chest glows red, and it's, like, it's cringy. I don't like it. I think they were trying to be badass, but it just looked dumb to me. I'm sorry. That's more of a subjective opinion. But, like, Shulk fighting the Telethi after he dies, that's badass. That was just cringy. I did not like it, especially after what just felt like a random, like, anime style interlude where they were just trying to fill space. Like, it could have been executed if they wanted a mid-game, like a mid-battle cutscene to divide the two battle halves. It should have been something more emotional, because it just felt like, no, I didn't like that. That's, again, a little bit nitpickier, because they did have the emotional thing at the end, which was great. But that's just me. Again, I'm adding this because it's like a list of things that felt like they were poorly executed at the ending of the game, where the rest of the game was just so flawless and amazing. Like, if not flawless to a T, I could have nitpicks there too, but there was so much that felt like it was just slightly off tone at this ending section of the game. So we seem to have gotten past Dixon, okay? And again, we have a magical transporter to outer space. Like, just these wacky transporters. Nothing explained why this transporter brings you outer space. But we're getting to the part of the game that just feels like that, I think, argues for what I was talking about before, about maybe the production being developed and maybe there being cut content. Because you go to this, like, outer space, and you go to each of the planets, and they're those ghosty versions of previous bosses, which is never explained whatsoever. There wasn't even, like, some ominous exchange between the two, like, party members or something. Like, the party members don't even acknowledge that these ghosts exist, which I don't know if it's supposed to be, like, maybe talking to the player more, some sort of fourth wall breaking. If it was meant to be deep, I don't think it was executed well. To me, it feels like it was something that was going to be developed more, but they kind of just left in. Maybe it was supposed to get you thinking before you got to the final battle with Zanza. I'll give it a pass. It wasn't awful. It was kind of cool. It did make me think. The region was cool, but, like, it was just weakly executed, whatever they were trying to do with that battle. And it was just, like, a random walkway so that you didn't just, I guess, teleport right from Dixon to Zanza, again, like, to break up boss battles. And I guess it set the tone pretty well. Like, it did that well, but it could have been done much better. Like, I don't think anybody could disagree that, like, just a little bit more, like, interaction between the party members and what was going on, or, like, some sort of explanation whatsoever after the fact about what they were witnessing. Somebody just commenting at all. Like, Charlotte, that's Gatto there? I'm pretty sure you fight Gatto. Like, what? That's Mumcar there? Dumbman, do you want to comment on ghostly Mumcar? Anyway, we gotta get to the biggest part, though. The biggest letdown for me in this game has to be the fight with Zanza. And oh my god, I'm not talking about, like, the gameplay fight, because that we could even, but okay, let's talk a little bit about the gameplay, because the gameplay with Zanza to me was so much more underwhelming compared to other boss fights. Like, I talked to you about how I love the setting of the Eggo fight, like the mechanics that went into it. And we could take a look at other boss fights too, like the Jade Face fight, wherever, like, you know, you're at risk of getting sniped. Like, those were cool settings. Those were cool little twists on the traditional formula to kind of spice up the battle mechanics a bit. But the Zanza fight, to be honest, it felt just like a typical multi-stage RPG battle, and, like, the only real, like, if you want to call it a gimmick he had would be the QuickTime Vision events, which was, like, I'm pretty good at QuickTime events at this point in the game. It wasn't difficult. It didn't make me think or go, oh, that's cool. It's just, like, the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, I guess I have to do QuickTime events to have visions. Whoop-de-doo. And then he has, like, these, like, those transformation sequences of himself, which is kind of a given in RPGs. But, like, he, like, creates a new world and whatever behind him. But it, like, does nothing. It's just, like, an atmospheric shift. The boss fight itself is pretty underwhelming in terms of that, like, other boss fights kind of had a cooler, you want to call it a gimmick to them, or a cooler feeling. But, like, even, like, just looking at how it looks, it's so jarring, and how, I don't want to call it uninspired because I'm using the word a lot, but it literally looks like a tube of, like, Teletubby vomit. Like, it's just rainbows, random nothingness. And Zanza is there, not like Shulk cooking Zanza. He's just randomly now this Bionis looking thing there, and people don't even recognize him, and they're like, oh, I guess it's Zanza. Like, no duh. But he already has this disconnect, and which was one of the coolest things was, you know, this whole Zanza Shulk is Zanza thing. And they remove that before you even start the battle, which is a shame, because that was one of the things that I was so excited for going into this final thing, is that I thought Shulk would have a bit more of, like, an identity crisis. Like, him thinking, like, you know, Zanza's been manipulating me all these years. He's been possessing me, like that anger, that was Zanza. He almost made me go dark side and kill Ego. Like, that's huge, just how much influence Zanza had on Shulk. The fact that he was like even trying to convince them he didn't exist, like, that's huge. And we get no resolution of that whatsoever. Not even a mention of, like, Shulk being like, get out of my head, Zanza. Or Zanza even trying to press that influence anymore. Zanza never, like, mocks Shulk saying, haha, you never existed, or anything. They almost ignored that plot point entirely just as soon as Shulk decided to not be dead after having a heart-to-heart with Albus in space. Like, it felt like they just decided at the last minute, I don't know how we're gonna have to resolve that. Just cut it out, because when you go to see Zanza, he's not Zanza Shulk, which was such a cool design, and I liked it so much more than that ugly mess of whatever he was, which I guess is fitting for him. He shouldn't be pretty, but I kind of like the fact that he was pretty. It was like, oh, like, you know, even evil doesn't have to look evil. It's kind of like the stereotypical, like, you know, evil things look gross and good people look nice, whatever. They just seem to remove that entire bit about Shulk's identity crisis and his relationship with Zanza. It should have been more complicated than, you're evil, I'ma kill you, but I'm evil, I want to kill you. Like, it was so dumbed down, and I was so upset at the fact that that got no resolution whatsoever, because it was such an amazing plot twist, and such an amazing part of the game whenever there was all of this, your friend Shulk never existed to begin with. I couldn't even do Dixon voice. And all this about Shulk thinking he didn't exist. Like, that scene where he just laughs to himself at dying, like, that was Xenoblade. That was phenomenal. This fight with Zanza is not. It is not phenomenal. Because we just had that previous fight with Dixon, mind you, where Shulk was, like, struggling. He was like, oh, I'm not strong enough, and that's Zanza's disciple. He's just, like, the B-tier guy. And we get to the fight with Zanza. And I kid you not, go watch the cutscenes. Like, I'm not talking about, like, the gameplay of you fighting yourself, because, again, you could be overleveled as hell and kick Zanza's ass, so let's not look at that. I'm just looking at the cutscenes. The interactions that the game puts Shulk in versus Zanza. Not once is Shulk shown to be struggling against Zanza. Not once. He is just shows up, like, gives his little spiel about you're evil, we're gonna have our own fate, blah blah blah. And he just kicks his ass from start to finish. He doesn't struggle whatsoever, even when he has the replica Monado, which isn't, like, doesn't have any power at all compared to Zanza. Zanza is literally a god, and Shulk doesn't struggle. This whole battle is so unsatisfying because there's no tension whatsoever. There's never a moment where you think Shulk is gonna, like, I don't know, betray everybody, or Zanza might win because we're underpowered as shit. He's a god, what the fuck? You just show up and you kick his ass and that's it. Like, there is no tension whatsoever in this battle, and it breaks my heart because this game was so good, and this final interaction with Zanza is so underwhelming. Shulk never is shown to struggle. And you kick his ass, he's like, why can you still have visions? And it's kind of explained. Not really. It's a lot of this ending isn't well explained. And, like, I'm all for leaving things open to interpretation, but this is a bit much. Because he still has visions, and then Shulk goes on this spiel about, you know, we're gonna choose our own fates, and gods are bullshit and stuff. And he almost quite literally pulls the Monado 3 out of his ass. Just, oh, we're kicking your ass, Zanza. I've got a cool new sword. Everybody shoot their laser beams from their weapons together. Like, what the fuck? When I saw that scene, I actually thought, what the fuck is this? It was ridiculous. There was the rest of the game. I never had a moment like that whatsoever. Like, the Monado, attaining the Monado in the first place was like this dramatic moment. Getting the upgrade of the Monado 2 was shown to be significant. Everything was so significant. And then it's just at the very last minute, oh yeah, look, I got this OP sword out of, like, nowhere from, like, the power of friendship? I don't know, why did everybody shoot their laser beams together? Are they all gods too? Like, oh my god, I really hate this battle because the rest of the game was so amazing. Put this battle on any other, like, B-list RPG, it would have been phenomenal. I'm not saying that it's, like, an objectively bad game, but relative to the rest of the game, this battle is so underwhelming in just how generic and simple and straightforward it is. Like, you get this badass sword, yay, cool, I really like the Monado 3's design and everything. but it's like, it's so lazy. This whole thing. You have like rainbow roads surrounding you, and it sometimes turns into the fucking moon place from Majora's Mask with like the trees and emptiness. And there's like so little tension. You never once think Shulk is gonna lose because he's just OP this whole time, and then he gets an OP sword. And God, it's just, I honestly think that at this point the developers wanted to do something with Zanza, like, and Shulk's like thing. There may be being more tension than this, because it felt like they just cut out an entire section of tension. Because we never see Zanza go from like his Shulk-esque appearance into this weird thing. And like, normally game developers love to throw transformations in your face. Like, why would you pass up that opportunity? And it felt like it was honestly just cut out, and all of like the struggle and emotions and whatever was removing it. Like, you had, like, it's like you missed an entire stage of what normally goes on in a fight. The fight was not fun. It was really underwhelming, and this was supposed to be like the conclusion. There should have been something at stake. There should have been struggle. There should have been something. And you just give a little speech, like him and Fiora are just like, yeah, the future is ours to decide. I'm not against like having cheesy speeches or anything. I'm all for it. But there was like no build up. It's like, we're kicking your ass and we're giving you a spiel about how we're kicking your ass, and you never actually really presented a threat to begin with. Zanza just turned out to be underwhelming as hell from what appeared to be such a cool thing. The scene from Egil, like when you defeated Egil and Zanza appeared, had me thinking that Zanza would be this incredible character, this incredible boss that, you know, kind of made you think about, like, you know, gods and powers and a relation, like Shulk's relationship with him and who you were. And it was nothing like that. It was utterly disappointing and underwhelming, and it just made me like so upset. And so I do have to, like, I guess preface this, well, not preface because I've already talked about everything already, but I do have to say that take it with a grain of salt that I unfortunately did have the ending of Xenoblade spoiled for me, several key components of it, before I actually got around to beating it. So I knew that Alvis was Monado, I knew that Shulk was going to recreate the world, I knew that Fiora was going to get her body back, but I didn't know anything about how those things came to pass. I only knew that they happened eventually, just because people casually talked about it, and then I got fucking salty that people do that, because it's like, the only people that you're going to do are people who already beat the game, so, or people who don't, and you're gonna spoil it for those people who are partway through and maybe understand what you're talking about, but not the full thing. Anyway, I'm not gonna rant about spoilers, but I got upset, and I almost, like, I just went on, like, a salty, like, period where I wasn't playing the game, because I'm like, you've ruined it, but the spoilers themselves set me up as well to thinking that this would be something incredible, that like, oh wow, he recreates the world, like, how does he even get that godly power? Like, Zanza, like, I honestly thought that what was gonna happen was that, like, Zanza was going to try to, like, persuade him into, like, being his disciple, like, his next disciple, because, like, there's this whole thing where Zanza is Shulk, Shulk is Zanza, and, you know, Shulk maybe was going to become evil, and it was setting up into something cool. And so I honestly thought that, like, maybe Shulk was going to go dark side for a bit, but then, like, realize, then through the power of friendship, like, his friends are like, this isn't what you wanted, this is what you're sitting out against, realizing that he just wants to live his life as a Homs, in a world without gods. That line is still good. Oh, I love that line. But no, he just defeats Zanza, and I guess he inherits his godly powers from this Monado or Alvis or whatever. It's such a rushed ending. So underwhelming. Everything past defeating Zanza, though, like, Shulk, assuming that Shulk becomes a god somehow, I'm okay with everything that happens afterwards. Maybe the epilogue was a little bit rushed as well, like the fact that Fiora Lailer gets, like, Deus Ex Machina, like, out of, like, she literally gets out of the Machina. Anyway, the fact that it just kind of came free of charge and no, like, struggle. There was, like, she had that entire struggle where she's like, oh, I might not live. Jokes at the end, she's okay. Like, it would have been cool, like, even having, like, a little section after the game, where I guess maybe collect stuff to make Fiora better. Like, just a little bit more, I would have been happy, but it's getting nitpicky. Overall, the epilogue was pretty good. I wish that Shulk had Shulk in particular, everybody maybe, but Shulk in particular had a bit more, like, emotionless at the end, because he kind of seemed a little bit too peaceful for, like, having just discovered that, oh yeah, gods existed, but we killed them, now we're alone in the world. Like, I don't want this to make this like a joke about, like, you know, existentialism and something that he has to consider, but he felt like a little bit too at ease with the fact that he just discovered that he used to not be real. Like, again, just going back to the whole, I so wanted there to be more discussion about, like, his like, a self-identity, as well as everybody's, like, you're literally talking about, like, gods and the creation of the world and our fates, and they were all pretty cool with just, like, yeah, we're just gonna enjoy the world, which is a fine conclusion to make, but it was just kind of made and just accepted, like, there wasn't really a long deliberating talk. But that's really it. This entire ending passage after Dixon feels fear up until the battle with Zanza, there's just so much underwhelming with it. And I'll admit that, like, maybe I'm being critical, maybe my saltiness about having the ending, like, spoiled for me made me primed to wanting more because I wanted a bit more out of the game. But really, the game was so phenomenal up until that point that it had, like, such the highest bar set for my standards. And again, slap this ending on any other video game other than Xenoblade, and I would have been like, yeah, that was a good ending. But Xenoblade was asking for so much more, and it was just, it was disappointing. And I'm sad about it. I'm not gonna lie. In my salty rage, I started drafting what I would have done with the ending of Xenoblade. I don't know if I'll get around to finishing it. I'd like to, because it's kind of a nice vessel for my frustration. If I was ever to finish a game, how I would do it after all of that amazing setup, all of that, like, foreshadowing and everything that just kind of disappeared after the appearance of Zanza. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry for this incredibly long video. If any of you guys have similar experiences or different experiences, you want to argue with me, leave something in the comments below, and I'll leave a transcript of all the notes that I have written in case you guys want to, like, go over them again and just read and search, because I might have missed some points, but I think I got the majority of it across. And I don't know if you'll see videos like this from me often, but for now, I guess that's it for me. Thanks everybody, and have a good day.